It's a very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new episode of Africa Today, our program bringing you all the latest news and events happening around the African continent. And we start straight away, as usual, with a look at some of the news making the headlines. And we begin with the DRC, or the Democratic Republic of Congo, that has declared the end of an Ebola outbreak that had infected 12 people in the eastern province of North Kivu and killed 6 of them. The outbreak was contained using the Ebola vaccine, which was given to more than 1,600 of the patient's contacts and contacts of contacts. The latest flare-up emerged on February the 3rd in the city of Butembo with the death of a woman whose husband had contracted the virus in the previous outbreak. We have more details in this report. The Democratic Republic of Congo has announced the end of the latest outbreak of Ebola that has killed 6 people. The declaration comes 3 months after a resurgence of the disease was reported in North Kivu in the country's eastern region. The World Health Organization congratulated the DRC and health authorities and the health workers on the effort. In a statement, the UN's children's agency UNICEF said a quick response by the authorities and partners had helped contain the outbreak. It noted that this was the 3rd outbreak to have hit the country in less than a year. Before the latest outbreak, beginning on the 7th of February, the country had announced the end of its 11th one, which claimed 55 lives out of 130 cases in about 6 months. In the latest outbreak, 11 people had become infected and 6 people died. And continuing with our news, the director of the World Health Organization, WHO, Tedros Adhanom, plans to run for a second 5-year term as the head of the agency, setting up a referendum on the WHO's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic under his leadership. It is unclear at this point whether others will emerge to contest him, challenging the 57-year-old Ethiopian diplomat. We have more details in this story. The Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom, plans to run for a second 5-year term as the head of the agency. A source familiar with the matter announced the news. Tedros has been the public face of the WHO's efforts to grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic ever since the new virus emerged in the central Chinese city of Wuhan in late 2019. In 2017, Ethiopia's Tedros became the first African to head the Geneva-based UN agency and made universal healthcare coverage his priority. A spokesman for the WHO said it could not comment on potential nominees. The WHO's 194 member states may propose candidates until September ahead of the election. It is unclear at this point whether others will emerge to challenge Tedros for the 5-year term. Diplomats said that Tedros' support among African nations would be key to any re-election, whilst doubting he could count on support from his home country, which nominated him last time. Tedros distanced himself from the findings of a WHO-led mission this year written jointly with Chinese scientists that investigated the origins of the coronavirus. And for more news, the Sudanese Foreign Minister Mariam Saad Al-Mahdi is on an African tour to clarify Khartoum's stance on the ongoing dispute over the Ethiopian dam. She began her tour with a visit to the DRC to stress Sudan's support of the chairmanship of the African Union in mediation efforts over the Ethiopian dam in order to reach a fair and satisfactory agreement for all parties. We have more details in this story. Sudanese Foreign Minister Mariam Saad Al-Mahdi said that the second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam would impact the lives of millions of people in Sudan. In a meeting with the Congolese president and current chairman of the African Union, Felix Tshisekedi, the Sudanese Foreign Minister stressed the importance of reaching a legally binding agreement between Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia over the filling and operation of the dam before the start of the second filling scheduled for June. President Tshisekedi told Al-Mahdi that he completely understood Sudan's position and the country's clear demands concerning the dam, and that he would exert utmost efforts to find a solution to the issue in a way that would achieve security and stability in the region. Al-Mahdi arrived in Kinshasa on Sunday in her 4th stop in a tour to discuss the issue with African leaders. Tensions have mounted in recent weeks after the latest round of trilateral talks in Kinshasa in April failed to produce an agreement to relaunch deadlock negotiations. Ethiopia's rejection of several proposals by Egypt and Sudan on the negotiation mechanism, which includes an international quartet mediation, led to the collapse of the Kinshasa talks. The three countries have resorted to diplomacy in recent weeks, briefing regional and international counterparts on their stances and developments on the latest deadlock in negotiations.
نحن لدينا مصير مشترك.
مصر تسلمت الرئاسة الدورية للاتحاد الإفريقي لعام 2019 وتتطلع كعادتها دوما للتعبير عن شواغل الشعوب الإفريقية الشقيقة الرامية لتحقيق الاستقرار والتقدم ودفع عجلة التنمية قدما. إذا كنتم ترغبون في تغيير وجه القارة الأفريقية فالاتحاد الإفريقي كقيادة تستطيع أن تعمل وتدرس بشكل مركزي لمشروع عملاق لبناء بنية أساسية على مستوى القارة. أنا أتصور أن الأمن والاستقرار استثمار. إذا لم تستقر هذه القارة والأمن فيها بمعدلاته عالية، هذا الأمر سينعكس بالسلب علينا كلنا.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest, Dr. Bassant Fahmy, the economic expert. Dr. Bassant, a very good afternoon to you, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am.
Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. Now, the Sudanese Foreign Minister, Mariam Al-Mahdi, is currently on an African tour to clarify, really, Khartoum's stance on the planned second filling of the Ethiopian dam. She is in the DRC reiterating Egypt's stance that the second filling will be of great detriment to both Egypt and Sudan. How do you see this visit by Sudan's top diplomat and her ongoing activity?
Well, I personally feel that a political and diplomatic effort could really help solve the problem through the economic diplomacy.
Right.
Definitely, everything has a solution, and we cannot deny that more serious problems were solved through diplomatic approaches. So I think the efforts exerted by Sudan and by Egypt would really help in solving that problem. The problem of water is a problem of life.
Yes.
It's not a joke. But we understand that Ethiopia talks all the time about economic needs. So that's why I said the economic diplomacy is the real solution to that type of problem. So the efforts exerted by Sudan and by Egypt are welcomed, and I think at the end more pressure should be put on by the international community, because the stability of Egypt and Sudan are the stability of the region and the whole world eventually.
Yes.
We are in the center of the world, and we have to enjoy stability, whether it be us or Sudan. And I repeat, the water is not something luxurious. This is life.
Absolutely,
But
Doctor.
I guess the international community as well, with the effort, the more we exert effort, the more the international community will be there to help us.
Indeed.
So I appreciate very much the efforts exerted by Sudan in that field.
Indeed. Now, we've seen the Sudanese top diplomat carrying certain messages on her visit. And what is the most important message here to the leaders of these African states that she will be visiting to gear up support, really, for the stances of both Egypt and Sudan?
The most important message is to give a clear explanation of how serious is that problem. In my personal opinion, it has to be clarified seriously, because it's life, it's agribusiness, it's production of food, it's life. So I think a proper message with effective, how do you say, ratios, indices, and real economic study would give a proper message to the world. And again, we need to know that the whole world needs stability in the region, because this will stop the illegal immigration, it will stop the terrorism, it will stop the fighting over areas in Africa. So I think giving a proper and clear message about the repercussions of what could happen with that, with what Ethiopia is insisting on, is the most important message. So I think the world will never accept an instability on that region. And I repeat, Egypt and Sudan are two big countries. Number of population is large. They enjoy the power of enforcing stability in the region. So I guess the whole world will appreciate that in a new era where the whole world wants to come and invest in our region. But they cannot invest while this instability exists.
Yes. We've also seen the Congolese president, Tshisekedi, telling al-Mahdi that, of course, he completely understood Sudan's position and the country's clear demands regarding the filling of the dam, which is scheduled for June. How much support do you see both countries getting from the African Union and other fellow African states, Doctor?
No, the Africans, they live together since a very long time. They understand carefully and clearly the problem. But I repeat, Ethiopia has an economic problem, and we need to solve it. And perhaps other countries as well. I don't want to go by name, but some countries would need an economic assistance. And that's why I started by saying the economic diplomacy is the only way to solve that type of complicated problem. But the issue of stopping the water from going to Sudan and Egypt, this is an unacceptable approach and will never, and I repeat, never be accepted by anybody, not only Egyptians and Sudanese, but the whole world, because I repeat, it would create a total instability in that region, which will hit the whole world.
Absolutely. Now, Doctor, do you see how much pressure, if any, has been exerted on Ethiopia by the African Union and other international parties?
I think international parties have not exerted enough pressure. And not even the Africans. And I think we should put more pressure on them and explain and listen as well. I want to mention here that we need to listen. Why are they being so stubborn about the issue? I repeat, this is an economic issue, and the assistance of the African Union and the whole world needs to assist as well to solve that economic conflict. But at the end of the day, it has to be solved. It can never be left like this.
Indeed. Let's talk a bit about the trilateral talks that came to a halt with no understanding or deal reached. What role do you think can be played now? As you said, the international community has not really exerted enough of a mediating role or even any pressure really on Ethiopia with regards to the unfulfilled negotiations.
In my personal opinion, there are hidden agendas. And those hidden agendas have to come to the surface. And we need to know who wants what exactly. It's not only Ethiopia. There are some hidden agendas which should be clarified and discussed in the clear, meetings. And at the end, I repeat, maybe there are other parties that are involved, and they themselves as well would like to see some economic assistance or economic cooperation, let's put it this way. So as long as those hidden agendas do not come to the surface, the problem will continue for a while. But at the end, definitely, everybody will put the people on the table, and we will sit together, all of us. And I always repeat, the coming area in the world is we are living in one world. It is not like before, every country has to do whatever they like. A problem in Ethiopia affects Egypt, Sudan, and other parties as well in the region, not only Egypt and Sudan.
Absolutely.
So I think there are some still hidden agendas which should come to the surface.
Indeed. Now, after Ethiopia refused to sign the deal prepared by the United States on the disputed dam issue, how do you see the next step, aside, of course, from these tours that we're seeing by the top diplomats of both Egypt and Sudan?
Let me call a phrase which has been said ever since the pharaohs. When the Nile is touched, the army is there. This phrase has been said ever since the pharaohs. The army is there if the water of the Nile is touched. and we are capable, and we know what we're doing. But this is the last solution. Nobody wants to see wars left and right, because in a war, everybody is losing, people are dying. But it is still a very strong paper which exists. We will never leave our right. We will never let more than 1 million individuals between Egypt and Sudan dying. It's impossible. So that's why I repeat the phrase which is written on all the pharaonic states, that when the water of the Nile is touched, the army is ready.
Right. Very, very well indeed. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Dr. Pesnat Fahmy, economic expert and guest for this afternoon. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insight and for joining us on today's edition of Africa Today. That's all the time we have for today. My name is Angie Mehermeni. Thanks for watching.